Hello, and welcome to a demonstration on creating a digital nature framework project description template. This video is going to contain the following: using the methodology and standard screening tool, and also completing the project details tab, stakeholder engagement tab, baseline scenario tab, safeguard tab, and lastly, the table or risk assessment tab. The next video is going to contain details on completing the application of methodology tab, quantification, crediting baseline, and monitoring tabs. To get started, please sign into Project Hub, then locate the projects menu, select project descriptions, create new project description, and accept the disclaimer. Now you'd see an array of standards to select. Please select SD VISta. You could also click here to get directed to the standard on various public site. Now also select the methodology and select SDVM002. Please make sure your project satisfies all the required applicability criteria before proceeding. And now you'll be required to put in the name of the project. Then also put in the document name. And now select the template version. So Nature Framework only has one version, so I'll select the version 1. And once you fill in all of this information, you can create a project. If your projects already exist on various registries, select this, and then you should be able to search or select your project from the drop-down list. Next, I should get a confirmation that my project is created, and that should bring you to the digital template. Before filling this template, please read the instructions provided here for full comprehension on completing the PD. You can also easily refer to them as needed while completing this digital PD. Also ensure to save as draft as you progress to not lose your changes. The calculate button should be used once you've completed the application of methodology section. Next, once you click on comments and within each subsection or areas within the PD, you can post a comment. Please bear in mind that these comments are only viewable within your organization or your team. Vera does not have access to these or will not have access to it once the PD is submitted. And you could also view or track version history here. The help button is where you find digital project submissions to user guide. This just shows you a step-by-step approach to using the tool and general guidelines. Now, to the far left of my screen, we have a table of contents, which allows you to navigate to sections within the digital PD. You could also update the name of your project or document name using the pen icon at the top. And the PDF icon here should generate a PDF copy of your digital PD. The downloaded PDF will always have the draft watermark until the project description template is completed and submitted. There are many table contents throughout this PD, which can be viewed in full and completed with ease if using a larger computer screen or monitor. Now, in the General tab, you would want to make sure you put in all of the required information that have their starts and also all other required information. Where known, please put in the VVB contact information. Once you've completed the required information here as well as all the necessary information, you can proceed to the project details tab. Please refer to the Nature Framework Methodology document via this link to clarify any of the requirements reflected throughout the digital PD. This round I button can be referred to throughout this digital template for specific instructions or additional guidances for completing the Nature Framework digital project description template. And the Code Reference button directs users to the relevant rules and requirements for the VISta Nature Framework version 1 and also accompanying documents. Please refer to this document to complete the template. Now in the Project Details tab, please complete as required summary description of project, project type and eligibility, the project activity type, the required project proponents. If you do not have the project proponent information, submission at the final stage would not be possible. If you have additional entities involved in the project, also fill in that information here. Ownership information is needed. Also note that you can add tables or insert tables, select the rows and columns as desired, and that should put in the table here. The tool is very intuitive and you should have features that are common with a Word document as well. To add a footnote, select Add Footnote, Add New, put in your footnote information, and now you can add. Once you've added that footnote becomes footnote 1, and all subsequent footnotes are ranked in the order of addition. Now, please note that the project start date is critical to displaying the required details in the application of methodology and calculation or quantification sections. So select your project start date and also justification of your project start date. The crediting period is also one section or subsection that is required to be able to display the required sections or calculations here in the application of methodology as well as the quantification sections. I put in my start date here as well. Once you've selected your period, you do not have to enter an end date. And also select your implementation schedule. One of the guidelines for identifying the required field to be to look out for this register. If a single location of project activity is selected here, then it will only allow you to put in a single project location information. So once I filled in my country, continent, state or province information, so as city information, then I can define project locations. Now for a single, as mentioned earlier, I can only define one location. And then I can put in my project activity locations information as well as project boundary information. To add multiple rows, select Add Rows. And project boundary only requires one information, as seen here. Now I can also select multiple locations of project activity. What this means is it still allows you to put in one project design, city and country information, but allows you to put in multiple project activity locations. And you can only define more than one location if a group project or multiple group instance is selected. Please note that the PD automatically populates group 1 to indicate that this is the first instance in a group project. Subsequent instances will be automatically populated as well. In all cases, again, you can only put in one project boundary entry. Now here I'm going to upload my KML file. And then this should just align the project to the map. Okay, and that concludes completing the project details tab. Now for the stakeholder engagement tab, please apply the same logic. Look for the asterisks, but all relevant information are required to be completed. The still tip here does provide guideline or guidance text to completing the subsection. The goal text here refers you to the precise location in the methodology. In cases where there are tables, some table input might have text box as seen here, drop down, or in some cases checkboxes. You can also delete excess rows if needed or add new rows. Other sections within this tool might have multi-selection checkboxes as seen here. Please ensure to check all applicable sections in cases where you have this option. Now that also concludes the stakeholder engagement section or tab. Now move over to the baseline scenario and causal chain. In this section, please remember to pay attention again to the I round button that contains specific instructions or additional guidances for completing the Nature Framework Digital Project Description template. And likewise, please also pay attention to the gold button that contains relevant rules and requirements in the VISta Nature Framework version 1. In this tab, you can see that we have a table here for the Sustainable Development context. We've already predefined or pre-populated the category information, so that's not required. As you can see, it does not allow me to type in any text here. But of course, I can go ahead and put information here in the Sustainable Development context as well as the Without Project Scenario box. And for Sustainable Development Objectives, put in the objective here and put in the UN SDGs here as well, then add new rules if needed. Project activities, the same applies here as well. In some cases here, you do have a radio button to select one of each option. So if I select yes for existing prospective funding available, it's going to give me an additional box where I need to put in some text. And of course, you do have your guidance text as well. Now, if I select no, I do not have that additional box. And I can also confirm double counting or do not confirm double counting. So please pay attention to radio buttons as well, as that will, in some cases, generate additional sections or radio buttons or just options to be selected or completed. Now I'll move over to the social and environmental safeguards section. In this section, again, depending on my selection, in most cases, I do have different options to complete. If yes is selected for respect and recognition of land tenure, then I do have to provide proof for compliance and consent, as well as demonstrations of legal authorization, proof of agreement. Wherever proofs are required, it would mostly allow an upload or text depending on the guidelines. In some cases as well, you can see here for displacement and resettlement, if yes is selected, provides a slightly different prompt or guidance to selecting no. And then for conflict overrides as well, you can see the same scenario applies here. So it's critical to select the right option. And if you don't see a text, what I'd say is select the right option first, and then based on the next prompt, you should see the applicable question, guidance text, just to avoid any confusion. Okay, and then access to resources, same also applies. If yes is selected, I do have to upload evidence. And so everything else should follow the same logic or the same format. In some cases, you'd see links as seen here for the watch list and block sanctioned parties. And so when you click on this link, it's just going to open in a different tab that does not interrupt your current progress. As you progress through the digital template, always make sure to save as drafts so you don't lose your progress. Now, just to wrap up with risk assessment before explaining some other tools and some other guidelines. For the risk table, you can see that the first two columns are already predefined as in some other cases. Now you just be required to put in your description of identified risk as well as the remainder sections here. In some cases, it's a drop down where you could select one option. Other cases, you do have multiple option selection if needed or if applicable. And then you also have an upload here. Now, if you're using a desktop, you may not be able to see all ends of the table. So if you scroll to the very bottom of this table, there should be a scroll bar here which you could utilize for scrolling. But if you're using the desktop or larger screen, you should have no issues viewing the full table at once. And with that, we've come to the end of the first demonstration on creating a digital nature framework project description template using the methodology and standard selection tool, and also just general guidelines. There'll be a following video on completing the remaining sections and using the calculation engine. Thank you.